Hello, world. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so good to be with all of you today. It is Tuesday, November 11th, and we have a big show lined up today. The Dane Wigington is going to be with us at the bottom of the hour. I set him up for an interview last week. Didn't know that he was going to be joining Tucker Carlson last night. That interview going viral. Really pumped to bring Dane into the Joy Virtual Studio to talk about weather warfare, geoengineering, solar radiation, weather manipulation, all of the things. This is becoming mainstream. What used to be relegated to the dark web and alternate channels, you'd be called a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theory if you ever talked about what was going on up in the skies. And just like vaccines, mass vaccination, the lack of informed consent and choice on many of the vaccine issues, this idea of weather manipulation and geoengineering has been something that we haven't been allowed to discuss on right-wing news media, left-wing news media, mainstream news media. And this has been going on since the 1960s. Well, Dane Wigington has been covering this, researching this for 27 years. His website, probably the lead authority in the world on all of these aspects of weather manipulation, climate manipulation, and the use of the weather to not only control populations, but also to wage war. Amazing interview with Tucker Carlson last night. We're going to expand on that today on the Shannon Joy Show in just about 15 minutes. So make sure you keep it tuned right here. I want to say hello to all of you on the live chat. Of course, we are broadcasting live on Rumble, live on Twitter, Spreely TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, every podcast platform you can imagine for listening at your leisure. Of course, partnerships with YouTube and Substack, and of course, the Died Suddenly producers. TJ is producing the show today and doing an absolutely killer job. By the way, a clip that we pulled from last week with Michelle Boyce and parent advocate in her parent advocate about the horrifying situation with her son, little Judah Boyce, who is being forced to undergo treatments, threatened with CPS. It's a nightmare situation. We pushed out one of those clips yesterday, and thank you, Jesus, it is gaining traction. I think we're up over 300 or close to 300, 271,000 views on that clip. And I have some updates for you on what is happening with that family. We have advocates pouring in, people who want to help Judah, contributing to his cause. We're going to make sure that this case gets so much scrutiny that there is no way that CPS in the state of North Carolina can take this boy from his family. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of an update on that as well. So thank you, TJ, for a great job on that. Of course, the headlines of the day, we have a couple. Trump and the terrorist. I never saw this coming. I told you all, I'm your girl, right? And I told you all from the very beginning, 12 years ago, 10 years ago, when Trump came down the golden elevator, this guy's not a good guy to partner with. His positions are arbitrary and capricious. He doesn't really have any principles, so to speak. There's no loyalty, there's no consistency, there's no honesty. I mean, just not a great partner to have, especially in terms of politics and who you're going to put into the most powerful position in the world. And so, I don't know how conservatives and Republicans, people who have been talking about Sharia law, who have been talking about the threat of terror attack in the United States of America, those who care about safety and security, I don't know what they're doing with this, but yes, we have a complete betrayal. And our girl Emerald Robinson over at Lindell TV is all over this, along with a couple other independent reporters who are not afraid to go up against this administration. And this is what she wrote. Great overview on her show. I'll have her on my show to talk about this. From Fallujah to the Oval Office, how did a U.S. wanted terrorist become president of Syria and invited into the Oval Office? The Trump hailing the meeting. He's a great guy. I like this guy. Apparently, they are now collaborating to defeat the Islamic State in the Middle East. So the terrorist is joining the U.S. military to take out other terrorists in the Middle East. And this is the world we live in today. This is why when I tell you the news is like a fire hose in my face every day, it's not just because there's a lot of news. It's because it's so damn unpredictable and so contradictory and so hypocritical. And there's no there. It's like sand through my fingers every day. Like positions change immediately. The good guys are the bad guys. The bad guys become the good guys. It's a rumble in the jungle with conservative media. We have Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Nick Fuentes, Laura Loomer, Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, Matt Walsh, all tussling on social media. Alliances are breaking apart. New alliances are forming. There's no consistency to a lot of the reporting. We're not talking about policies. We're not talking about solutions. We're not talking about how, I don't know, younger generations like the Zoomers and Gen Alpha and the millennials are even going to be able to pursue the American dream, start a business, own a home. By the way, Donald Trump doubling down on the 50-year mortgage. But wait, there's more. They now want to roll out the 15-year car loan, right? You're going to pay more for the car. It's just insane, utterly insane, right? So they're talking about the 50-year mortgage, the 15-year car loan, $2,000 stimmy checks that won't actually be stimmy checks. They're just going to kind of like reduce your taxes somehow, right? But we're in boom times. We're in the golden age. There's no inflation. No one's suffering. It's the best economy ever. Meanwhile, if you saw my show yesterday with one of the best market analysts, Jack Gamble, you're going to know the reality of the economic situation that we face in this country. And it's okay for the boomers, pretty tough for Gen Xers like myself, but absolutely horrifying for Gen Z, millennial Zoomers, and incoming generations. The American dream is being ripped away from our children and our grandchildren. And no one seems to care. Everyone's just fighting with each other about whether or not Nick Fuentes is going to be the new Charlie Kirk. And, it's low level, 100 level political analysis. It's intrigue. It's a soap opera. And it's a huge distraction. And this is what conservative media has become. It's just a disgrace, an absolute disgrace. And so I see you, Future Ez, on the live chat. And Brandon Bennett, great to see you. Good morning. And so, yeah, there's a lot going on. The terrorist Ahmed al-Sharaa was welcomed at the White House by the president, according to Emerald Robinson. 21 years ago, he was killing Americans in Fallujah. I remember this as a battlefield commander for the Al-Qaeda in Iraq. Today, he's wearing a $3,000 suit and shaking hands with President Trump in the White House, being paraded around as the new president of Syria. Emerald Robinson reports his name used to be al-Juhani, then al-Nusra, and now al-Sharaa, but the blood on his hand hasn't changed. And there are images of him with two heads that were beheaded. I don't know if that's him. I don't know if that image is, and TJ, don't put it up because I don't know if it has been confirmed and I don't know if it's a valid photo. But there is absolutely no dispute that this guy was a known terrorist and a self-admitted terrorist. There was a $10 million bounty on his head just last year, and now he's being welcomed like royalty. Veterans of the Iraq War are furious. Families of the fallen are asking, how is this man being legitimized? Why is a known terrorist who murdered Christians, Alawites, Druze, and American soldiers being rewarded with power and photo ops with the MAGA, America First, President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, in the Oval Office. Outrageous. The BBC has wiped the footage. Intel agencies have changed his look, but open source truth is bringing it all back. And thank you to Emerald Robinson for having the balls to put this out when so many men in conservative media are too busy kissing Trump's ass and fighting amongst themselves about a variety of ridiculous things that don't matter. We're going to have to get Emerald in on the show at some point. It's been a while since she's joined us, and she's doing a really great job. So yeah, this is again a rug pull. This is what Trump does. And now we are also witnessing another 21st century phenomenon in the world of psyops, which is the laundering of character, right? And this was the issue that we had with Tucker Carlson last week, platforming Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and a few other bizarro con platformers, platforming people like the Tate brothers, who are self-admitted pimps, pornographers, and sex traffickers, right? It's this kind of normalization or whitewashing of the character of really bad people. And when you don't have to do it, right? There are a million things. It's so interesting. You know, I'm lambasting Tucker Carlson last week for platforming Nick Fuentes. This week, he's pushing out Dane Wigington, which I'm thrilled about. I can't wait to bring Dane in on the Shannon Joy show to talk about solar radiation management, geoengineering, and weather manipulation. But it's very confusing. Very confusing, but that's what Trump is doing. Trump also tried to whitewash the dark character of Andrew and Tristan Tate when he sent Richard Grenell, an emissary, a diplomatic emissary, to, I think it was Munich, to strong arm Romanian officials to let the Tate pimps go and come back to the United States of America. It was a huge PR nightmare. They had to hustle out of Florida because Ron DeSantis came out and said, we're going to investigate you for crimes here in Florida. So it backfired in Trump's face. Then he claimed to know nothing about it. But, you know, first he's whitewashing the character of the pimps and the pornographers. He's pulling the rug out from under the Epstein victims, everyone who fought for the release of the Epstein documents. Again, Donald Trump whitewashing the character and changing history, rewriting history on behalf of the pimps and the pedophiles. And it's pretty gross to watch. Now, literally whitewashing the character of a known, brutal, horrifying terrorist. I don't know how many rug pulls need to happen before conservatives, Christians, Republicans, America First people realize that this guy is a Trojan horse. And your girl, Shannon Joy, told you this from the very beginning. I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. I was also right about Bobby Kennedy Jr., Jay Bhattacharya, and the medical freedom movement joining up with this guy, again, an unpredictable partner in Donald Trump. You never know what he's going to do. He's like a box of chocolates. And this is why in June of 2024, I advocated strongly and loudly that Bobby Kennedy Jr. and the medical freedom movement get nowhere near Donald Trump and join that administration. I told you that MAHA was likely a psyop created by people like Casey and Callie Means. Also, Susie Wiles, who has been a promoter and a lobbyist for Big Pharma almost her entire life. That unholy alliance is now falling apart before our eyes. And none other than Brett Weinstein, the guy who likes to think of himself as the head of the medical freedom movement, when I have questions about that, is admitting it. This was pushed out by Holden Culotta. Brett Weinstein, in an interview just recently, MAHA saying this: MAHA has been crushed by Washington. And I would say this: MAHA never really existed. MAHA was a psyop to come in and absolutely destroy and tear apart the medical freedom community. Now, the good news is, guess what? They didn't succeed in doing it. The medical freedom community is strong. We're not as strong as we used to be, and we've suffered some setbacks, but the infrastructure is there. The alliances still exist. And I know because I am embedded in this. All right. But he said this: it's disheartening to see. I'm talking about RFK. I was just with Jay Bhattacharya. There is an architecture that drains them, that wastes their efforts, that places roadblocks, that causes them to back off, way off of their objectives, and also ruin their credibility and their legacy. And that was my biggest warning to Bobby Kennedy Jr. over a year ago, that he would destroy 20 years of credibility and consistency in the alignment and the alliance with Donald Trump. And I've seen it happen for 10 years. I saw it with the Christian coalition of the right. I saw it with the Republican Party. I saw it with the Tea Party Republicans. I saw it with the Freedom Caucus. I saw it with good Republicans who came into office, who have been twisted and turned, because frankly, you have to turn yourself into a pretzel and twist yourself inside out and betray all of your long-held beliefs and principles in order to keep up with and stay aligned with President Trump. That's his role. That's the job. That is why he is so dangerous. That's why I think Trump himself is probably a psyop or a left-wing liberal progressive Democrat from New York City, which is what I've always said, and a Trojan horse. I would like to warn people like Governor Ron DeSantis, who occasionally step out and try to align with people like Trump. I've seen it from some other conservatives. It's like nails on a chalkboard for me. Do not come anywhere near this man. I'm so thankful I never got anywhere near the Trump train, MAGA, Donald Trump, any of that apparatus. And I suffered. You guys know that this show, the platforming of this show, the funding of this show has suffered time and time again because of my refusal to align in that area. I am so glad that I never did, because I can still tell you the truth and hopefully maintain some consistency and credibility. All right, so let's go to the live chat. Again, we're bringing Dane Wigington in just a moment here in the Shannon Joy Show, but I do want to say hello to all of you. TJ, if you want to pop. Okay, very good. I wasn't sure if he was in. Dane Wigington is in. He is set up, and we are going to move on to our interview of the day. But yes, we've now wasted 14 months of and the credibility of many of our movement leaders because of this alliance. And it's important because we need to break the alliance. We need to move away. We need to get back to principles, solution, truth, consistency, bottom-up solutions, localism, decentralized power, getting our country back to on a constitutional footing, which we can do, and we can focus on those things. We just don't do those things because we waste way too much time talking about what's happening in Washington, D.C. And that's why I focus on this. Believe me, I do not want to focus on Donald Trump. I don't want to focus on a lot of the infighting and what is happening within D.C. But we have to, because we have to break the spell. We have to get people out of the left-right paradigm, the belief that the two political parties are working in opposition to each other. They are not. They're working together. And until enough Americans, not all Americans, but enough, a critical mass, can pull themselves out of that two-party political paradigm and get back to the truth, we won't be able to move forward. And so that is why, Rothan Walker, I continue to cover this stuff, right? Because I see your comment there. This is why Shannon can't get to the truth. She'll talk about Trump pushing for 15 years, 15-year auto loans and 50-year mortgages, but stops at Trump. Who are the usurers and making money off this? Well, the banks and all kinds of banks. And Rothan Walker wants me to go and yell about the Jews because there's a whole population of people who want to always make these things about the Jews, about the Zionists. And yeah, they play a role. But you know what? There are a lot of other entities out there who also play a role. And they're white, they're black, they're Christian, they're Jewish, they're Muslim, they're female, they're male. They come in all shapes and sizes, Rothan Walker. And so we're going to look at all of them. And yes, I am very comfortable criticizing Israel and Netanyahu and all of their manipulations, what they've done to their people, what they're doing in the Middle East, and how they're trying to influence people here in the US. But I'm not going down your rabbit hole, so don't try to get me to do it. All right. So Karen Carpenter 27, great to see you on the live chat. Futurez is with us as well. CJP Rumble, great to see you. Fanatic Voyage. I love your show, Shannon. Few get my attention like you do. Well, thank you so much, Fanatic Voyage. I love seeing new voices or new faces and new chatters on the Rumble live chat. Really appreciate you. Brandon Bennett, I've been seeing you more and more on the live chat. Great to see you. PG Glenny, Opossum King. And yes, of course, Trump is now attacking Marjorie Taylor Greene. It is so confusing out there right now. Keeping up with all of this is just crazy. But that is a great example of why this, the whitewashing of a terrorist is so interesting right now, because they're really just they're ripping us back and forth on a pendulum of insanity. And the people that we were supposed to align with yesterday are now our enemies. The people who were our enemies yesterday are now our friends, or at least they're trying to tell us that. And it makes things very confusing. This is why we tether ourselves as best we can to the truth. And that's what we do here every day on the Shannon Joy Show. Not left, not right, just the truth, straight up, no chasers, independent, every day as best we can here on the Shannon Joy Show. And that's what we're going to continue to do as we continue to grow and platform this show. Okay, Grace Schwan, thank you so much. Andy Cyrus said that it was Al Julani. It was an I can't read that. Julani soldier who is holding those heads in the picture, but obviously under his command. Yeah, Inez Andy Cyrus would be a really great source for all of this. I'm sure she is just outraged right now. I'm going to have to get her on the show actually to talk about this. So maybe we'll bring her in next week on this topic. But today we are going to talk about weather warfare, everything that is happening in the skies. There is no better expert out there than the Dane Wigington. Finally, after 27 years of advocacy in the wilderness, his ideas, his viewpoints, his research is going mainstream. Everyone is acknowledging now that there is something happening in the skies. And we're going to talk to Dane about what really is the case and what we can do moving forward. Cannot wait for this interview. He is the world's foremost expert on this topic, in my opinion. And we have him here live in the Joy virtual studio. So we're going to go to break. When we come back, Dane Wigington on the Shannon Joy Show. Big thank you to our sponsors over at Purge. Right now, this is the product that I've been using. I'm on day 7 of my 15-day intestinal purge. So this is an advanced cleanse for digestive health. And, growing up, speaking of our healthcare system, every time you get sick, whether you have the sniffles, a sore throat, inflammation, you go to the doctor and it's always either a virus or a bacteria, bacteria. So you get an antiviral or an antibacteria. Well, when was the last time you went to your medical doctor when you were dealing with some sort of malady and they said to you, hey, you know what? Maybe it's a parasite. Maybe it's not viral or bacterial, but maybe it's parasitic. This idea that humans can't have parasites or don't have parasites is one of the most interesting suppressed pieces of information that I have seen. And I just thought of, when I first started thinking about parasites, I'm like, wow, no one ever talks about them. But it is very true that humans can have parasites, and those parasites can impact your health in many, many negative ways. Right now, Purge is giving you guys 15% off of your order if you go to www.purgestore.com/joy. That is purgestore.com/joy. Use the promo code JOY. Join me on this cleanse, right? Again, we can't do anything about the parasites in Washington, D.C., but we can take responsibility for our own bodies and make sure that we are naturally healthy with regular parasitic cleanses. 15% off right now in your order if you go to purgestore.com/joy.
This is Jennifer with darkbags.com. I wanted to show you our latest product. This is our laptop sleeve that has a over-the-shoulder carrying strap, as well as these 2 straps on the side, so you can kind of hold it like a briefcase. What's special about this is that there's actually a Faraday bag built in to this backpack that fits up to a 17-inch laptop. So here's my laptop. I'm going to put it in. Once you put your laptop into this sleeve, your company can no longer track you, because they do track you after you log off of work and you put your computer to the side. They're still tracking you wherever you go. Another thing that's awesome about the Faraday pouch that's in this bag is that it blocks excessive EMF radiation that's being emitted to you, so that those harmful pulses will not reach you. And also, in case there's an EMP, this protects your electronics from the EMP. So not only does it fit your laptop, you can put your phone, you can put your wallet in here as well, and it will be protected. There is cushioning on the sides, so it'll keep all of your electronic accessories safe in here. This will be available on darkbags.com.
Get ready to rethink how you build and deploy your retirement wealth.
Traditional investing is dead.
Aggregated total of monies in retirement funds in the U.S. are pushing $35 trillion right now.
The capital's there, and it's invested in just basic stocks, bonds, mutual funds. And
I think that the investor of today just needs to expand what they can do with that money.
So with Rocketdollar, you can make private and alternative investments, single-family property, homes, limited partnership investments in private equity and venture funds. It could be even cryptocurrencies or digital assets and everything in between. Holding real estate next to your public stocks, and I always joke around that it's no longer the S&P 500, it's the S&P 7. And dollar for dollar, if you own these inside of IRAs,
you typically end up getting 20 to 40% better annual returns than owning the same investment outside of that IRA account, because you don't have to pay taxes on an ongoing basis.
I have parents who have no retirement savings because they work in the restaurant industry. I love that I figured out a way to be impactful to Main Street, normal working individuals, people that it would have changed the course of my parents' lives had they met someone like that.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. Dane Wigington is with me today on the Shannon Joy Show. He's going to spend the next hour with us. He is the lead researcher and administrator for the website geoengineeringwatch.org. He's the executive producer of the groundbreaking climate engineering documentary, The Dimming, which is linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show today. He has a background in solar energy. He has been an advocate for truth regarding what is happening in the skies. 27 years, Dane. You have been a voice in the wilderness on this topic, but you didn't let that dissuade you. And now everything that you've been saying over the past 27 years and the body of work that you have built that people can look to at geoengineeringwatch.org, you have become likely the world's foremost expert on this topic. And you are now being justified, right? It is now becoming mainstream. We have two pieces of legislation in Florida and in Tennessee. We have elected officials like Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about this topic of what is going on in the skies, geoengineering. And we have legislation being presented in almost 30 states, if not more, surrounding this topic. It is no longer something that is in the corner, in the dark, relegated to the crazy tinfoil hat wearing people. It is right in front of our faces. It reminds me a lot of what we've seen with vaccines and in that area. But congratulations to you and a huge interview yesterday with Tucker Carlson, really pushing this into the fore, Dane. Congratulations. You really have been out there, lead on this, and I appreciate everything that you've done. How does it feel to be right about everything?
The gratitude's mutual, though, Shannon. I'm grateful for your voice as well and everything you're doing to pull back the curtain and challenge people's biases and programming on so many issues. And as far as who's actually behind this and the left-right paradigm, which is purely a facade to distract people from the oncoming train. And on the subject of the oncoming train, what's taking place in our skies, the gravity and immediacy of that threat cannot be overstated. If we don't deal with what's taking place in our skies, all other causes, all other concerns will very soon be moot. If we can't inhale without sucking in toxic nanoparticles with every breath we take, that's infiltrating our food, our water, virtually everything, destroying the planet's life support system, starting with the ozone layer. Shannon, can you feel how intense the sun feels on your skin when you're in an unobstructed day of sunlight?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So we were told hairspray cans are the problem with that. And although that's a very tiny problem, CFCs climate engineering is destroying the ozone layer. So bees, Shannon, you know the bees are collapsing, right?
Yes. I've noticed butterflies, bees, insects in general, crickets, even mosquitoes, interestingly enough, here in upstate New York. You don't see them. It's very strange. It's very strange. Right now we're in a cold snap, but even the snow is weird. And I will tell you, it's the craziest thing. I'm a conservative, constitutionalist, whatever. But I did grow up on, years of Rush Limbaugh talking about the crazy lunatic left-wing environmentalists. And in some ways he's right. I mean, they are crazy. They are caricatures of themselves. And a lot of what they did and said was outrageous. But at the same time, you can see, I mean, we have absolutely had warming. Growing up in upstate New York, all winter long, we would have 6 to 8 feet of snow. I remember I played in it. It was always there. And we have had warmer and warmer winters. You would say, however, though, that it's not the hairspray and mom, driving the kids to soccer practice in her SUV. Those things will have impacts. But it's more this systematic, governmental, controlled manipulation of what is happening in our skies that dates back to 1963 or earlier, right? 40 to 60 million tons of nanoparticles dumped into our atmosphere. The ingredient list, horrifying, and this type of thing is used now. Not only, I guess what I would say, I'm going to give this over to you in a minute, but I think we've seen the hijacking and militarization of scientific areas previously thought to be outside of the military-industrial complex, right? Weather and virology. It used to be guns and cannons and nukes and all of those things, and those are bad, right? That's how they would wage war and control populations. But I think they're using this in a less obvious, yet way more invasive way. And so it's that type of manipulation that is leading to these crazy weather patterns, weather systems, violent shifts in weather, cold to hot. I mean, and you know all about this more than I do. But then it makes it all complicated, right? Because yes, there is warming, but it's not why we think there's warming. And this is where this topic is so highly politicized that it's hard to grapple with it, Dane. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on, to kind of help us understand that.
If I could back up just a bit in regard to the destruction of the ozone layer, which is near functional collapse at this point, that we can most completely hang around the neck of climate engineering operations. And that's not to negate other forms of human damage, but climate engineering operations, because of the oxidative particles and the frequency transmissions used to manipulate those particles, that is the most destructive of all to the ozone layer. That's scientifically recognized. In regard to the overall warming, you're completely correct. The planet's not just warming, it's in total meltdown. I have great disdain for the environmental communities, all of them, because all of them are patently ignoring and denying the single most destructive human activity of all, which is climate intervention operations, aka weather, chemical, and biological warfare. In regard to the military, Shannon, you're completely correct. The covert weapons of the military are weather, chemical, and biological warfare at this point. In regard to the weather, because they can use that as a weapon to bring populations to their knees, including the U.S. population, without those populations ever even knowing they're under assault. And our military brothers and sisters that are involved with this are being told they're doing something benevolent, something for the common good. The whole climate engineering premise is built on a mitigation for the warming of the planet, when in fact we know these operations are not making it better, they're making it worse by far. So again, this is a covert weapon of war, and we have, in regard to the damage done to the planet, we have, it's not a this or that equation, it's a this and that. So we're incinerating 100 million barrels of hydrocarbon a day, 26 million tons of coal a day. We're cutting down the forests, we're paving the planet, we're poisoning the oceans. That's all a problem, a big problem. But when you intentionally interfere with the planet's life support systems, on top of all that, when you prevent the planet from trying to respond to the other sources of damage done, that's a death sentence. That's near-term planetary omnicide. What we're trying to do at geoengineeringwatch.org is build bridges, not burn them. What we point out to even those in the environmental community, how can we have any legitimate discussion about climate, anything, from any perspective, without first and foremost addressing this elephant in the equation? So that's how we build bridges instead of burning them. We're coaching legislators to do exactly that, because there's about 36 states right now with some stage of legislation, as you just mentioned. I just testified as an expert witness for Wyoming legislature, and we're trying to keep those wheels turning. But if we stick to that narrative, can't discuss the climate from any perspective without addressing this first, hopefully we can build bridges, separate that, or join that divide instead of having a wedge driven into it, and push this issue to the full light of day while we can still make a difference.
Hey, that is exactly why we love what you're doing, Dane, and appreciate all of your hard work, because those bridges do need to be built. And I do believe, we're going to need some attention to this at the federal level, but I think there's a lot that we could do at the local and state level to at least try to rein in, some of these things. And even on just a human individual level, let's go back in history a little bit and start at the beginning, if you can point to it, of the shift from armies and guns and cannons and weapons of mass destruction and nuclear bombs, and the pivot into this new 21st century warfare, which, as you rightly mentioned, I agree with you, weather, chemical, and biological. And this is why I think the propaganda and the psychological operations surrounding both what's happening in the skies and also the mass vaccination policies that have been, deployed in the U.S. for the past 40 to 50 years are so intense. This is why you see the moniker of anti-vaxxers and chemtrails and all of the suppression of discussion about these things, violent suppression of discussion about these topics. I know, because I was kind of in the vaccine world, a little more than the chemical warfare world and the weather warfare world, but I think I see similarities. But this was purposeful, systematic, and dates back into the 1960s, probably beforehand. You quoted Lyndon B. Johnson yesterday on your interview with Tucker Carlson, and I thought that it was, just absolutely chilling. 1962 on the record publicly, he said, he who controls the weather controls the world, and said we have the capability to control weather. I mean, that is major. And then it's largely erased. I mean, no one ever even, talks about that anymore. But it was actually happening, and you have a rich knowledge of the history. Can we start at the beginning of when they began to intrude in these ways against their own population of people?
The experimentation has been going on for well over 100 years. Patents go back well over 100 years, but the full deployment of global climate intervention operations with global coordination took place immediately after World War II over the polar regions, and they've expanded steadily since that time. And you're correct, Shannon. I mean, we live in an insane asylum at this point, an orbiting asylum where people can pretend, quote, safe and effective with concoctions that are anything but safe and effective. It's completely inseparable from what's happening in our skies. Same people behind all of it, ultimately the money printers. Elected officials are simply puppets in the play. I don't care what their political stripe is. And so the overlapping of these issues and the culling of the herd, and that's exactly what we're dealing with here in a increasingly rapid sense. And when we have climate engineering dispersing toxic elements in our breathable air column, we can't hide from that. We can hide from a toxic concoction injection. We have to breathe. And when we know that part of what's being dispersed in our skies, in addition to aluminum, barium, strontium, manganese, polymer fibers, surfactants, have you ever seen foaming rain runoff? That's surfactants in the rain from the climate engineering. But we have polymer fibers and graphene. And both of those are listed in climate intervention patents, but they're also used militarily as biological carrier platforms to carry a pathogen from the clouds to the ground. And we have the second most recognized climate engineer. Again, this is very important for people to understand, so I bring it up often. Dr. Ken Caldera, former Department of Defense scientist, and we own an audio of him stating in his words, what he did for the DoD was design methods of spraying pathogens into clouds to infect the populations below. People need to wake the hell up. If we don't deal with what's happening in our skies, not just destroying the planet's primary life support systems, but virtually contaminating everything, how is this not a fight for life right here, right now? And what's taking place in our skies is so blatant, so obvious, so inarguable, and so many people still so willing to deny it because they're told to deny it. You could light the sky on fire, Shannon. It seems like many people wouldn't notice it. So we need to break that paradigm soon.
We do. It is. And we're in like this mass hypnosis. I mean, to me, the greatest psyop is the D versus R, Republican versus Democrat, kind of left versus
Yes.
right paradigm. I think
Yes.
because that's the necessary paradigm to completely divide the country. Then we can't talk to each other. And then we are susceptible to the narratives like the hate of the other side trumps everything else.
Yes.
So you've got to filter through that in order, and that makes them more suggestible, easier to deceive, because there's always an evil villain, right? Or just around or living right next to you or across the Thanksgiving table. So, right. And so this is why people yell at me for like focusing on that so much. But I'm like, we've got to get through that first, and we got to wake up to that. And I think that there are more independent voices out there, more people willing to do that. Are you seeing that, Dane? That there are more willing to cross the political line and kind of talk about these things, understanding that we do have a villain and they're in our own government, but we can beat them, but the population is gonna have to come together in some way. Are you seeing any hopefulness there from your perspective?
Yes.
Okay.
We are definitely seeing more and more within the ranks of our platforms, our followers. We've 250,000 on YouTube, 250,000 plus, and we're seeing a very marked change of understanding that it's meet the new boss, same as the old boss, same controllers behind the curtain for all of them. And they use the most polarizing, divisive lightning rod individuals they can in political posts to, again, further that divide that you just described so accurately. But we're seeing more and more people understanding exactly what that is, what the purpose is, and understanding that we're in a common fight for life here. Again, people have no idea the gravity of what's unfolding right now and the blatantness with the actions of those in power, whether it's the chaos, conflict, and carnage zones in the Middle East that are completely orchestrated by the same core of power. And people need to put that in perspective as to who's really the victims there. And the bottom line is, if we can't deal with this biological warfare that we're all being exposed to, and we're getting science study now, Shannon, proving, for example, in the case of the polymer fibers, that nanoparticles of polymer materials are showing up in human everything, brains, organs, placentas, extraordinarily high amounts. Yes, we have decomposing plastic in the environment, but what we tested at altitude with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Flying Lab, processed that at Rensselaer Polytechnic in New York, top scientists, globally top scientists, and we found manufactured particles. That means it's not just decomposition, and that's related to climate engineering, which is a ubiquitous contamination all over the globe. And we have the science community now acknowledging human brains have as much as a spoonful of nanoplastics in one human brain. What's it take to wake people up? Is it any wonder neurodegenerative disease is going off the charts? And in the case of the bees, and I know they collapse. We were told 70% collapse, 70% this year alone. No pollinators, no people. But that's not the whole story. That's a 70% collapse of the 20% that was remaining. We're down to single-digit pollinators right now, and people are playing political theater and not understanding that we're on a sinking boat and we're about neck deep in water right now. So again, it's a matter of priorities. If your head's on fire, you ignore your stub toe, your skin knee, and certainly the political circus. You deal with what's the most immediate threat, and that is definitely what's taking place in our skies.
We're talking to Dane Wigington. He is, in my opinion, the world's foremost expert on geoengineering, weather manipulation, solar radiation management, and all of the things that you see happening in the skies. And no, they're not chemtrails. We don't use that word because that's a word created by intelligence to distract everyone from what is actually going on. When we come back, I'd like to start there. I'd like to start at a granular level and dial this all back. How are they doing this? What is it, right? What is it that people are seeing in the skies? And how are they dispersing this? How ubiquitous is it in the US? How are they using it to manage weather and maybe even direct storms? All of the things. And then, the bigger picture, who's behind it? Who are the entities
Thank you
that
for bringing
are
up some
building it?
On the semantics part, though, thank you. But before we get to the break, I want to make that note. Thank you for bringing that up, because it is very, very important. Semantics matter in this battle. We're playing chess. We need to learn how to play well. If we use the science terms, they can't marginalize us. So thank you for bringing that up. That is very important.
Hey, I never forgot it. I interviewed you, I want to say a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, Dane. And ever since then, I never, ever said the word chemtrails ever again. It's always solar radiation management, geoengineering. No, you really had an impact on me. And so I appreciate you. You are a brilliant, brilliant communicator. And so that, that's very important. We will touch on that when we come back a little bit more as well. Again, geoengineeringwatch.org. geoengineeringwatch.org. I think millions upon millions of people rely on the research that you provide. It's one of the best resources for good information you can take to the bank, right? The best studies, the best information at that website. So please support them. When we come back, we'll continue with this conversation with Dane Wigington. Keep it tuned right here. I am embarking on a parasite cleanse with Purge. It is the Purge Advanced Parasite Cleanse. As I mentioned, I'm on day 4 and it's going very well. It's a gentle cleanse. I might ramp it up to there's an ivermectin cleanse that the wellness company has that is, I think, a little bit too intense for me. I want to start with something a little gentler. But what people don't realize is that one of the biggest threats to our health isn't something that we see. It's something that is living inside us, something very, very, very tiny, microscopic, and that is parasites. They enter through your food, water, even the air we breathe. And once they're in, they drain your energy, cloud your mind, and can weaken your immune system, quietly stealing your vitality day after day. So this is why I am now doing my very first ever. I'll let you guys know how it goes. I'm enjoying it. I think it's working. It's the Purge Advanced Parasite Cleanse. It isn't just another supplement. It is a natural, powerful formula. It's made with ingredients used for centuries to detoxify the body, eliminate parasites, and restore balance safely and effectively. We're so thrilled to welcome Purge Parasite Cleanse as one of our advertisers here in the Shannon Joy Show. So we'll be talking about the ingredients. We'll be talking more about how it works, but you guys can try it with me if you go to www.purgestore.com/joy. That is purgestore.com/joy. Make sure you use the promo code JOY for 15% off if you want to start on the parasite cleanse. So Lupine, thank you for setting me up for that. And yes, I will make sure that's why you're so loopy, Brandon Bennett. You're loopy because you might have parasites and you can cleanse them with Purge. So make sure you go to purgestore.com/joy. That is purgestore.com/joy.
This is Jennifer with darkbags.com. I wanted to show you one of our newest products from Escape Zone. This is our satellite Faraday sleeve. So it actually will fit your satellite phone, which we've noticed that there wasn't any product on the market that perfectly fit them. So we decided to make them ourselves. And it has this Velcro closure right here to close it up. And that makes this dust and water resistant. So what's nice about this Faraday pouch is that it'll protect against any EMPs. So your device your emergency device actually will always be protected in here as long as it stays in here. You can take it out for everyday use, but if you're not using it, we recommend that you store it in here. Again, this is available on darkbags.com.
A great company. You are going to love Henry's story. If you go to rocketdollar.com/joy, that is rocketdollar.com/joy, you can learn all about their services. But essentially, the mission behind Rocket Dollar is to allow every American to take a portion of their retirement savings account, whether it's $200,000, $500,000, you name it. But take a portion of that, move it into a self-directed IRA, and use that to invest in things that you have expertise in. But what I have here, rocketdollar.com/Shannon Joy, and you can learn all about it. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. And yes, I've been thinking about Rocketdollar more and more over the past couple weeks. Yesterday, my show with Jack Gamble, when we were talking about the massive, massive tech bubble, right? It has been single-handedly driving all of the gains in the stock market for the past 5 years. It's the big 7, too big to fail, the AI bubble. And everyone knows at some point, we know that the short sellers are circling right now. They see the fraud in that bubble. And when it bursts, man, it's going to take a lot of people down, a lot of good people down. And when I talked to him about what people could do, especially with their IRAs or their 401ks, he really advocated, taking a role in wherever your funds are being invested in your 401k or your IRA. And if that means working with your financial advisor that you trust, that's fine. But a lot of people are going and they're saying, I'm taking self-custody, right? I'm going to move my funds, my retirement into a self-directed IRA, and then I can disperse those funds wherever I want to disperse them. Whether it's gold and silver, physical gold and silver, real estate, whether it's in industries or corporations that you have a unique knowledge or expertise about, anything that to be a safe or the safest place for your hard-earned retirement. These days, I think a lot of people trust themselves more than they do the federal government and some of these AI-driven investment firms. That's exactly what Rocketdollar does. And that's why I'm really, really thankful to be working with them. We're going to have to get Henry Yoshida on the show again to talk about this in more detail. But please today go to rocketdollar.com/joy, rocketdollar.com/joy. Sign up right now, put your name in there, and they will send you information on how to take custody of your IRA. And, especially as we have so many people who are really manipulating the system. So thank you to Rocketdollar. And thank you to our good friend, Dane Wigington, who has done so much to very articulately explain what is happening in the skies. Geoengineering, weather manipulation now going mainstream. They can't deny it anymore, Dane. And you have been proven to be right and accurate. An enormous amount of information at geoengineeringwatch.org. Let's go back to kind of the nitty gritty. I've been thrust into these areas of expertise, epidemiology and virology and weather and science. I'm horrible at science, like so bad at science, so bad at math. And so this is always a bit of a struggle for me, but I'd love if we could just kind of do a basic understanding of all of the ways that they are infiltrating our skies and our atmosphere and manipulating things. There are a lot of different variations of how this is working, a lot of different names. We don't say chemtrails ever again, but there are things happening at the federal level, at the state level, low in the sky, high in the sky. They're all a little bit different, and people have a hard time grappling with the enormity of it. I was wondering if maybe you could help us understand kind of from beginning to end how this is happening and the different types of geoengineering that we are seeing that are also well documented as you have laid out in so many of your pieces in your work. But maybe we start there with just a simple explanation of what is actually happening.
Great points. First, let's start with the quote condensation trail narrative. Completely false narrative. What we're seeing in our skies, almost without exception, are sprayed particulate dispersions. We have up close film footage of these aircraft at altitude, nozzles visible, turning dispersions on and off. You can't turn a condensation trail on and off, period. And condensation doesn't behave in this manner. It doesn't spread out, linger, and cover the whole skyline with a dirty, filthy haze that looks like smoke. Smoke is a particulate, and so is what they're dispersing. It's a particulate, so it doesn't look like a natural cloud. In fact, it's diminishing natural cloud cover. So again, the stated purpose of solar radiation management, stratospheric aerosol injection, cloud albedo enhancement, the scientific terms, is to intentionally spray light scattering particles into the sky to block some of the sun's incoming thermal energy and slow the warming of the planet. But in fact, those same particles block long-wave radiation bouncing back into space, so they trap more heat than they deflect. And we know they're using these operations as a covert weapon of war, Shannon. So there's nothing benevolent in this. That's only the cover which they use to try to carry out these operations. In comparing the different types of atmospheric manipulation, and you're very correct to bring that up. Thank you. There is the difference between what people understand to be cloud seeding operations, localized, publicized, single engine, propeller driven aircraft with a few flares in the wing. That is not climate engineering. The difference between localized, publicized cloud seeding operations and climate engineering is to compare an ant to an elephant. And the small scale operations are used to distract people from what's really taking place in our sky. So there's a mountain of difference between the two. So you remember, Shannon, in the Texas floods that took out all the kids? It just happened. That
horrifying. Yeah.
And so there was implication there that had something to do with a localized cloud seeding operation. And there's a particular individual there that's been used as a smokescreen for those operations to distract from climate engineering. That was climate engineering.
Is that the guy with the long hair? Is that the super young guy with the long blonde hair that goes on and he's like, really?
Mullet, the guy with the mullet. Yes, that's
Mullet Man.
Augustus Dorico, it's Rainmakers, his company's connected to Peter Thiel. There's pictures of him nuzzled up to Bill Clinton. Whatever part this individual is playing, he's clearly meant as a mass distraction from climate engineering. So in the case of the Texas floods, what took place there, and we know this because we still have access to data loops, surprisingly, that show us this interaction of the ground-based frequency transmissions that are used as a core part of climate engineering and their interaction with the storms that caused that tragedy. What happens with the ground-based transmissions is they have a repelling effect against the air mass they surround the air mass. In that case, we capture this. It's on geoengineeringwatch.org. Transmissions from all sides of the storm that caused that. And when they energize on all sides, it holds that storm in place and it precipitates out in one place. And that's what happened. We recorded the same with Hurricane Helene. The ground-based frequency transmission network, the NextRad network that is absolutely a core part of climate engineering, manipulated that storm into its place. And again, we can speculate on agendas and objectives, but the fact that those storms were manipulated is inarguable. Hurricane Harvey, you remember that, Shannon? You remember it stayed in place for 3 days without 50 inches of rain? How did they know 7 days in advance that storm was going to go where it went and sit there for 3 days? Because they're reading a script literally passed down from Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, private defense contractors that are neck deep in climate engineering, everything. And they do the weather modeling for the nation's weathermen. Why do we need private defense contractors to do the modeling for our weathermen? Because they need the narrative to match. So again, it's like right now, the cool down that's taking place in the U.S. right now, the chemical cool down. And if people saw the maps of the U.S., it's staggering. Well, we have L.A. in the 90s in the West, bright red Western U.S., and we have a bright blue Eastern U.S. These are departure from normal temperatures on maps, how they show the colors of the temperature deviations. This is engineered top to bottom, and there's no question meteorologists don't know. They know this is going on. They absolutely know. And we have an illegal federal gag order on the nation's weathermen, National Weather Service and NOAA. Why would you gag the weathermen if you didn't have something extraordinarily colossal to hide? What's it take to wake people up and when people find their backbone and their courage in academia and stand up and tell the truth?
Yeah, I mean, you're just blowing my mind. There's a federal gag order on weathermen?
On all agency operations. So we have disinformation people that actually are working with this administration that are pushing one, that it's just jet exhaust. And we had, unfortunately, RFK Jr. following that narrative because it's what's being fed to him. Not that he's at liberty to speak out about anything anyway, but they're pushing entities working with this administration, pushing that it's just jet exhaust and that this gag order, that there's no gag order on geoengineering. Of course there isn't. Why would they have a gag order specifically on geoengineering? How big a red flag would that be? So they try to deny that there's a gag order because it's not specifically on geoengineering. It's on all agency operations. So again, it's a game of semantics. And I've had a NOAA scientist state to my face off the record, we all know this is going on. We have no First Amendment protection. We don't know what to do. So again, I mean, how big does this elephant in the equation need to be? Our skies look like something out of a Vin Diesel science fiction movie, Shannon, and people go about their lives as if nothing's going on above their heads. It's mind-numbing.
Unbelievable. You talked about ground-based operations. Can you explain what that is in a little bit further detail, and how that's impacting and moving weather systems?
Yes, these transmissions, again, have a repelling effect on an air mass that's saturated with electrically conductive particulates. So we have very expensive ground-based networks that are manipulating these storms. Even in the case of hurricanes, now we hear constantly the term rapid intensification, because they're not letting these storms spin up until they get near enough to landfall for these networks to start steering those storms. So again, this is patented technology. We're not guessing. The U.S. military first commenced its hurricane manipulation operations, at least publicly, in 1947 with Project Cirrus. How far have they come since then? And with very minimal input, they appear to have a massive effect on a storm that then steered into Georgia, and there was lawsuits pending, and they decided to go underground at that point. And of course, they're not going to broadcast these operations. But it's truly mind-numbing how programmed the American population is, how controlled matrix media is in the U.S. In the case of these cool downs, and back to that, if your listeners search Chinese scientists create artificial snowstorm, the Chinese government was very open about this initially, nucleating what should have been, it's chemical nucleation. So a storm that should have been liquid precipitation, rain, turns into frozen precipitation in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, cotton ball-like, quote, snowflakes, or grapple, looks like
yes. Yeah, keep going. Because I'm seeing this. The weather looks weird.
It is weird. That's a chemically nucleated element. So in the case of the Chinese operations, everybody covered it. CNN, MSNBC, The Guardian, Popular Mechanics. But yet you bring it up here and suddenly you're wearing a tinfoil hat because that's what matrix media wants us to believe here. These are patented processes. So when it goes from 80 degrees to snow in a day, and it's doing that literally in places, people should know that something's radically wrong. And chemical nucleation, because people don't understand how much this is just basic science. If you have a first aid kit that sits on your shelf for 20 years at room temperature, and you mix the cold pack together, you have ice instantly. That's called an endothermic reaction. And that's what they're doing in our skies on a scale that's inconceivable. So, and they're using this as a weapon. We have one example in 2013. You may remember there was 100,000 cattle killed in a freak flash snowstorm, snow that started falling at 40 degrees. Why is there snow falling at 40 degrees? And how do 100,000 cold hardy cattle die in Dakota when it's October 4th, 40 degrees there? It was 89 degrees and raining in Kansas City. It was 85 degrees and raining in Chicago. How in the world do you have a freak flash snowstorm that kills 100,000 cattle, and then all the frozen precipitation is gone in 2 days? They're laying around in the mud dead. Does anybody think that's normal? Same thing happened in South America. 250,000 cold hardy alpacas killed from a freak flash engineered snowstorm. Go ahead.
Dane, why would they do this? I guess that's the other big question. So what is the government's, and we can get to the who. We should try to get to like the villain in the who, but that's always complicated. But let's start with why. Like, what would be the advantage or the reasoning behind killing 1,000 alpacas, or killing, a bunch of cattle, or moving a hurricane around? Like, what do you think the larger agenda is? I mean, I guess we kind of touched on this in the beginning of the show. It is, this God complex of people who have gained an enormous amount of power, I think, who just want to control everything. And there's hubris there. It's hard for me to grapple with like, what's that big picture? But from your understanding, what is the why behind this?
The why is complicated. And again, for those in power, they look at this as a risk-to-risk scenario, and they're not worried about the welfare of populations, including our own. They're worried about retaining their power, period, at any cost. Why would they detonate 2,400 nuclear bombs? Don't they know they work after a few dozen? Why would they carry out Project Starfish Prime and Project Fishbowl? That is the U.S. military's experiments with detonating hydrogen bombs in the magnetosphere that they thought could collapse the entire atmosphere. Did that stop them? No, it didn't stop them. And we need to add this, and this is the part of the equation that most people struggle so desperately with. The current paradigm can no longer be maintained. We have trashed the planet from 1,000 different directions. And again, I'm no Al Gore fan or AOC or any of the environmental groups that are ignoring climate engineering, but I'm stating the fact of the matter. The walls are closing in very quickly. Fisheries are collapsing, crops are collapsing, forestry is collapsing. Bottom line is this paradigm can't be maintained. Do we think those in power are really here to help us at this point after the whole CV-19 scenario? And we know we're being poisoned from the air. We know the U.S. military, Shannon, Washington Post covered this. As of 1977, there had been no less than 239 open-air biological tests conducted by the U.S. military over innocent, unknowing U.S. civilians. Do we think that those in power are really here to help us? And let's finish with this. Zbigniew Brzezinski, literally a demon that walked among us in so many ways, more evil person didn't ever exist. Yeah. He stated on the record, and your listeners can look this up, Zbigniew Brzezinski, advisor to U.S. presidents from Johnson all the way up to 2017 when he died. He stated on the record, I'm quoting verbatim, with today's technology, it's far easier to kill 1 million people than to control them, quote, unquote. For those that still unfortunately believe that those in power are here to help us and our posterity, it's time to wake up. The American population, most specifically, is rapidly becoming a liability to those in power. So again, people need to wake up, understand we're in a fight for life, and that these covert weapons of war have been the crown jewel weapon for the controllers because they can bring populations to their knees, blame it on nature, and the poisoning of the population slowly but surely that's being systematically hidden by agencies that have been set up for decades to do so, including the air particulate matter. The smaller the particle we breathe, Shannon, the more toxic it is. Doesn't matter what the element is. Now, if the elements themselves are toxic, it's far worse still. So all official air quality testing by design, PM10, 10 microns, occasionally PM2.5, those particles are boulders compared to nanoparticles. You can fit up to 100,000 nanoparticles across the width of a single human hair. They're inconceivably small, which makes them bioavailable and bioaccumulative. That's why we're sucking them up with every breath through our olfactory nerve and our nasal passages into our bloodstream, crosses the blood-brain barrier. Is it any wonder? Now we're sort of trained and taught now that Alzheimer's and dementia are something you can just expect when you get older. That's not the way it has historically been. In fact, we have the world's foremost experts on aluminum toxicity stating on the record, peer-reviewed study, that without aluminum in the equation, there would be no Alzheimer's or dementia in the normal human lifespan of 100 years. So again, I'm focused on this issue, Shannon, because if we don't deal with this, nothing else will matter. These particles are being absorbed into everything we eat, everything we drink, every breath we take. How is that not a top priority?
And the people at the top make bank on every aspect of the process, right? So Albert Bourla, CEO of Pfizer, comes out and says that, Pfizer is now focusing all of their resources and efforts into fighting cancer, right? So they cause the cancer, inject people with cancer, do all of these things to harm people, and then they make their profit on curing the diseases that they caused. And it's just horrifying. And I think a lot of this is voluntary willingness of people in positions to stop it, a refusal of regular people to just say no. It's like we have these, I used to call them, Dane, megalomaniac control freak lunatics running things on both sides of the political aisle. I've now switched, and they are malignant, narcissistic sociopaths, which I think is a little bit worse, because to me, I get the sense that it is a small cabal, or maybe a few factions of warring cabals that have lots of money, billionaires, gazillionaires, trillionaires. Elon Musk just got $1 trillion pay package from the board at Twitter, which is insane. Twitter doesn't make that much money. I don't know. I'm like, what is wrong? Like, so, but it seems to me that we really have some crazy people at the top that are highly manipulative. They have a lot of money. They're paying a lot of people to repeat the propaganda, and a lot of people, whether it's knowing or unknowing. And I would say this applies to congressmen, senators, media people, are being manipulated in certain ways through money or access or influence, or maybe they have some secret scandals that, there's a file on them. They don't want people. I don't know. I don't even deign to know why, but it seems like the entire apparatus of the world is being controlled by a smaller and smaller faction of people. Do you have any insight into the who of the people behind this? And I understand the why. It's power, it's control, money. That's a tale as old as time. That is the beginning of humanity from the book of Genesis all the way to our modern day. But who would you say the players are right now, globally, if you could identify them?
Those who print the money control it all, period. They control militaries, thus they control countries, they control media, and it is a very small group of people in power. And this is important too, and you alluded to this, but they couldn't do what they do without the active or passive support of the population. We have too many people willing to go along. They don't want to be bothered. They think somehow it's going to magically work out. That's not how this story is going to end on the current course. And as far as the control of our quote elected officials, I can tell you what was told to me to my face by former Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney in a lunch I had with her in LA some years back. She told me that she was told if she did not sign an oath to a particular country in the Middle East, Israel, she did not sign an oath to Israel, she would be a one-term Congresswoman. Told me that to my face. So how is that legal? How is it legal for so much of our so-called elected officials to have dual citizenship to that country and ours? How is that legal? My wife is from Lithuania, and she was required to relinquish her citizenship to her birth country in order to get citizenship here. Why does that not apply to this other country? So again, and I'm not blaming a particular country. I'm just stating that there is clearly mechanisms of control, and those who use a country or a creed in order to mask who they are, what they're about. But it is very clear there is a core group of power. They are controlling it all. Yeah. It goes back to those who put the money, period. And again, they don't need our tax dollars to climate engineer or do anything else they want to do. We have black ops money. I think the last statistic I've seen is 31 trillion that the Pentagon can't account for. Where did that come from? So again, we are in a fight for life. This is a fight for life, and we need to prioritize and ignore the theater that you so accurately have alluded to on all sides of this fence. We need to unite, build bridges, and push. If we can push to light what's happening in our skies, I would argue it will drag everything else with it when populations around the globe realize what their governments have done to them without their knowledge or their consent. That's the proverbial pitchforks and torches moment, Shannon, and we need to reach that moment fast.
I think we can reach it. I want to talk with you about that in just a moment. But to go back to your criticism and your critique of Israel, which I agree with. I think Israel is a player, and I think they have an agenda, as every major country or a country who wants to be a power player does, and they wield an enormous amount of influence here in the United States of America. And I think that that's absolutely accurate. But I do get concerned that the hyper focus, that two things on that the hyper focus on Israel alone distracts from what the British have done and the Fabian socialists, what we see happening in China and Russia. I mean, the Christian socialists that we've seen here in our own country who have done pretty horrible things. I think that there's a lot of critique to pass around. And I will also say it looks as if these people work together, right? They certainly make alliances with each other. They don't care about humanity of their own countries or the countries that they're invading or poisoning or marginalizing. And as long as they're all making money on the top and they're all kind of, they really don't have a problem with waging war against we the people. The second thing that I see is highly, highly troublesome is this isolation of one group and one race or faith of people as being like the ultimate villain. I think it distracts from the other villains, but it also delegitimizes a lot of what you're saying and what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm trying to critique this nation and this country on what their policy is. And we devolve into, oh, well, it's all the Jews. Annihilate the Jews. We need a new Holocaust. We need, people like Nick Fuentes who come out and really, it's almost like a caricature of that diminishes the whole critique. And that's something that I'm even grappling with that with one of my chatters on the live chat right now. I grapple with it from a lot of people. What are your thoughts on that? And how do you navigate that?
I don't think you're not saying that. You're not pushing that narrative. You're not focusing on a specific, the country that's used as a cloak. It's used as a smokescreen. Right. Those who control that country using it as a smokescreen. And it's about those behind the curtain. Again, they use a particular creed as a smokescreen as well. But again, it goes back to those who print the money, whatever flag they fly. And there are many. And certainly we have global cooperation between all the major powers. It cannot be otherwise with CV19 and including climate engineering. And we have documents, in one case, an 800-page U.S. Senate document going back to 1978 that specifically calls for intergovernmental cooperation between, quote, otherwise adversarial nations. So clearly, as you so correctly just stated, we have these different factions colluding and cooperating together for their own purposes. And as far as the disaster capitalists go, and there are many, again, the example I would paint is it's like pirates filling their pockets with loot on the deck of a sinking ship. On the current course, no one gets out alive. I'm not talking about centuries from now or decades from now. We are hurtling toward extremely near-term planetary omnicide, and the vast majority have no concept of how exponential this equation is. You can't look backward 200 years and say, well, it took us this long to get to this point, so we have that much in front of us. That is not the case. This is the fuse that burns along at a particular pace, and once it hits the dynamite, that's the end of the story. And we're so close to that. Once this paradigm can't be maintained and nobody can help anyone anywhere because everyone's neck deep in their own struggle to survive another day, that's when we have Mad Max times 8.35 billion. And we are perilously near to that point. And that's why the power structure is so desperate right now. That's why they're engineering this radical cool down. And that, as you mentioned, the polarizing of populations, that's exactly what that does. Right now, it doesn't matter if it's been record highs for who knows how long in so many places. When you can engineer a flash snowstorm, many people go blank. Oh, look, there can't be any warming. Look, there's chemical snow falling outside of my doorstep. Shannon, you remember the January 21st, interesting date, by the way, of this year, the flash blizzard in New Orleans. Remember that?
I remember hearing about it, and I might have tweeted about it. So, yes.
So, okay, we have a blizzard in New Orleans, never happened in recorded history before. We have blizzards on the Gulf Coast, blizzards in Florida, blizzards. What didn't they tell us? On the same day, in the Arctic, in Alaska, Greenland, Iceland, Siberia, it was above freezing and raining. Explain that. It's above freezing and raining in the Arctic, and it's blizzard in New Orleans. That's chemical ice nucleation. And Shannon, you've seen the baseball and softball size hail falling everywhere now, constantly. Have you seen that?
Gosh. Well, we've had big hail in New York. Yeah, but I haven't seen the baseball. That's insane.
Well, okay, if anybody looks online, there's so much hail falling on baseball and softball size. I mean, it's destroying whole towns, whole solar fields. I mean, taking the siding off of buildings, destroying car lots. There's so much of that happening now that insurers are completely erasing coverage for hail, anything. And this is chemical ice nucleation. Again, how is that not weather warfare? And we're talking about a real danger to human health. If you're outside and a softball sized hail hits you in the head, you may not survive that. And so again, how is this not all out weather warfare? We have an engineering winter section on the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org that goes into this further, but we're going to see much more of that as we go into this winter, especially because the heating surface thermal energy buildup is going exponential. So they're going to double down on chemical nucleation. So these instant flash cool downs, you're going to see many more of those. It's not nature, it's toxic, it's climate engineering.
You heard it here first from Dane Wigington. Again, in my opinion, the world's foremost expert on the weather warfare. I think that's a good statement, a good encapsulating way to explain what is happening in the skies. Really appreciate everything that you have done. Let's talk about, we have a couple minutes left. If you guys have some questions, quick questions for Dane, you can pop them up in the live chat. We'll see if maybe we can get to them. We have about 7 more minutes before the end of the hour here with Dane Wigington. Of course, please support all of his efforts to get the word out about what is going on at geoengineeringwatch.org. That is his website. It's also a source of exhaustive amounts of science and proof and research on everything that he just said today. So I highly recommend you guys go there, support, become a follower of Dane Wigington. You can also follow him on Twitter as well. I will link him on the Twitter feed for this. Let's have some good news. I agree with you. I feel like the key is, a large enough percentage of the population, not everyone, because most people will have their heads in the sand forever, but a large enough amount of people standing up and saying, you know what, we do not consent to this. We're not doing this anymore. We're going to get going at the local and state level and just say no. Pitches or, torches and pitchforks type of situation. What does a win look like to you? I mean, you paint a pretty dire picture and it seems overwhelming. All the bad guys, they have all of the money, all the power. They have all of the technology, though, Dane, I do think that sometimes they exaggerate how good their technology is. I don't know that it is as good as they say that it is. I think they try to scare us with that and make us think that it's inevitable that the robots and the nanobots and the AI is going to control us in this new kind of crazy dystopian future. But I mean, if all of those bad things are happening, a lot of people would say, well, we're all going to go to hell in a handbasket. It's over. I'm just going to stick my head in the sand and not do anything. And so there's a very fine line, I think, that has to be drawn between alerting people and alarming people about what is happening and making sure that you don't push them over the edge into apathy and depression and despondence so that they don't do anything. Like, we need people to do things and we need them to be activated in order to kind of get to the place where we want to be, which is maybe another 50 to 100 years of human flourishing, existence, freedom, and life. So what do you see as the way out of this and what we need to do? A lot of people watching right now, they live in their own corner of the world. They have their own unique talents and abilities. They might want to do something. What would you say to them in order, to move this ball forward?
I know this is a difficult pill to swallow, but any timeline of that length would be extraordinarily optimistic. This paradigm cannot be maintained much longer, but I would start with this. Our whole society is built on this programming that if you're not guaranteed a happy ending, don't even try. And I would give this example again. If your child was in a burning house and you knew you had almost no chance of saving them, would you not run in and try, no matter what the cost? And is there not solace in knowing that when you take your last breath, you did what you know you should have done? You did something. You tried your best, that you're here for a reason, for a purpose. And that purpose isn't a personal pursuit of pleasure. It's to give back to the whole, to try to provide some future for your posterity, period. So again, it starts with a change in philosophy. You do what's right because it's right, and that will always be right. And there is solace in that, unshakable solace. So we start with that. And two, if we truly apply ourselves to this equation, if we share credible data, and you alluded to that earlier, credible data is essential in moving this fight forward. That's how we do it. Credible data from a credible source. geoengineeringwatch.org strives to be that source. If two people shared credible data from a credible source first day of a 30-day month, and those two each the second day, and so on for 30 days, we're into the millions. That's how we reach a critical mass of awareness. And when people involved in this, from actively or passively in government, in military and private industry, when they realize and their families realize they are literally participating in their own demise, that is our best chance of stopping these operations from the inside out, that we reach a critical mass of awareness. Again, those participating, we would hope enough of them would stand down. We would have a different equation. The planet would be allowed to respond on its own to the damage done. And as bleak as the horizon looks, and it looks damn bleak,
right?
Nature, this creation, this miracle planet that we inhabit is miraculous beyond anything we can conceive of. If we give it a chance, we have to give it a chance. And that will take all of us. Again, That's how you start a spot fire of awareness, though. Credible data from a credible source. Don't just run out in the street, rant, and point at the sky. Share something credible. That's the key to the door. If we all engage in this as we're playing a game of chess and play correctly, we can still alter this equation. It will take all of us.
I believe we can too, Dane. And I'm so thankful for everything that you have done. And I agree. I'm a believer. I'm a Christian. We have a lot of people in our movement, this movement, varying faiths, but I do believe in miracles. I absolutely believe in miracles. I believe the body can heal. I believe our nation can heal. I believe this planet can heal. And I do believe that there is a God in control of things. And there is nothing bigger than him. And as humans and men, we try, to be God-like or be bigger than God. But I think that he certainly does have a plan. And that's my personal belief. I think that's critical because there is so much doom and gloom out there. And a lot of people will just become despondent. You straddle this and you articulate this very difficult topic so brilliantly. And so just keep up the great work. How can people help you and support you? I do have one question. I have a couple questions. We're only going to get, I wish I had you for a little bit longer because I'll just have to have you on again. We'll do a Q&A. But Zayada had a great question. She said, do you know if there's an effort to call out the pilots or to educate pilots? I know there are some, but it's important to address. Do they know what they're doing? That type of thing. I'd love to hear you address that, and then we'll wrap things up.
Yes, some do. We're dealing with some commercial pilots that leave our 20-page fact and photo summary booklets, which is an excellent key to the door for this issue. They leave them in pilot lunchrooms and so forth covertly. They don't want to lose their employment. And we're not implicating that commercial pilots or personnel are not directly involved. Their aircraft are positively being used. We know that from film footage, but they're not involved. We're not implicating commercial personnel at all. But again, it's about reaching critical mass. And if I could back up to congregations need to hold their pastors responsible. Scripture states, before you knew your sins were washed away, now that you know your sins remain. I've met with pastors from mega churches in Northern California. First thing they say to me is, we don't need to worry about it. It's all in big hands. Wait a minute. That's not what Scripture states. It doesn't state you can hide behind your pulpit and pretend that everything's okay when it's anything but. We're required to be good stewards of this planet, period. That's what right. Scripture requires of us. So again, it's up to congregations to hold their pastors accountable and force them to address this issue. And that's exactly what Scripture states. So again, we need to follow that Scripture and know that we're here for a reason. We're required to stand at our post until we're relieved by our Maker, period. And that's a life worth living.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I see the doomerism it is a almost an ideology in on the left, on the right, among atheists and also Christians. And I'll see, as a Christian, Bible believing Christian, I see it on my side all the time where, it must be end times. Jesus is coming back. I mean, the worst of the worst. They'll be like, but Jesus is coming back. And I'm like, that is not what Jesus, it's going to happen at some point, but we're not supposed to be like, yeah, let's hasten that. Let's make it happen faster. So, I think that type of mentality can inflict all different types of belief systems. And so I agree with you 100%. We do have something to do here. We are called to do something here, and we will all have to face our makers. Okay. We're going to have to account for what we do here.
Yes.
Awesome. Dane, thank you so much. How can people help you?
100%.
Yeah.
Simply help us to share our data. And again, for a weekly update, we do a weekly broadcast. We pay for out of pocket across the country without commercial interruption on live radio. It's called Global Alert News. You couldn't fit more data into that 55 minutes. That's posted to Geoengineering Watch every week, commercial free. So that's one way to get an update. And the dimming, our documentary, The Dimming, that is the standard for education on this issue. It's had over 26 million views on YouTube. In spite of social media censorship, sending out a link to The Dimming to elected officials, agency people, environmentalists, that is the tool that can wake them up if they're going to wake up. Again, we just ask to help us share our data so that we can start spot fires of awareness. And if we stoke those fires and we build enough of them and they merge into a blaze that can't be put out, we'll push this issue to the full light of day. That effort will take all of us. And thank you for your voice, Shannon. Thank you so much for your voice of sanity in a world gone mad.
Oh my gosh, you too. Thank you for all the hard work that you've done. And we're gonna have to. We'll do. I'll do a showing of the dimming. We'll do a documentary watch show on the Shannon Joy Show. I like to do fun things on Fridays with the audience. Sometimes I think that'd be a great fun event to watch it all together. So we'll push that out. Thank you so much, Dane. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you.
All right. All right, guys. I told you he's one of the best. One of the best. Sometimes it feels like the truth balances on a pin, especially when there is so much disinformation, propaganda, chaos, the news cycle just operating at such a rapid pace. It is so difficult to thread the needle in a way that actually gets you to the truth. And that's why I very often say in the intro of my show, we tell you the truth the best we can, the best I can, because sometimes even for me, it's hard to find the truth. It's hard to know the truth because there is so much manipulation out there. And now with technology and AI, it's even hard to believe your own eyes if it's coming through a screen, right? It's like literally getting out there. What is happening in my physical world? What am I seeing and hearing and experiencing in my physical world? Measuring that up against what you're seeing on social media and what all of the blabbermouths are saying on the left and on the right, and just trying to figure out what the hell is going on so that you can protect your family, so that you can protect your future grandchildren and pursue happiness and pursue a livelihood on this beautiful planet. And so, I so appreciate people like Dane Wigington who are able to thread that needle in such an articulate way that comes from 27 years of diligent research and a mission to get to the truth, not to use it to make money or to twist it to gain access or to veer from it. This guy has been in the wilderness for quite some time, probably pushed out of many of the circles that make a lot of money on terrifying people. And he doesn't do that. And I really, really appreciate that. Zayada, yeah, one of the best on the subjects of PSYOPs. Well, what I want to do, and so I'm taking a look at the live chat. We're going to close out the show. Guitar Lily, he's amazing. You all need to see the dimming. Well, this is what I wanted to do with all of you. As you know, Fridays on the Shannon Joy Show are like a box of chocolate. Sometimes there's a show. Sometimes there isn't a show. Sometimes we do a Hey Fam town hall meeting. It's just basically whatever I want to do, and if it works, right? Well, we're going to do, I just had this idea the other day because there are a lot of documentaries that I want to watch myself that I haven't watched that I want to push out and I would love to watch with you. So I was thinking we would do a couple SJ watch parties. And this Friday, I think we'll do the dimming. So I want to do the dimming. Dane Wigington also recommended Peace, Propaganda, and The Promised Land that he said was really good. And there's another one, The Big Short. Have you guys seen The Big Short? I've never seen it, but everyone's talking about it as we are sitting back and watching this AI bubble inflate, and it's like looming and crazy. And so I think The Big Short would be a great option as well. So maybe I'll put that up for a poll for this first Friday that we do the live documentary watch or the watch party. I'll put this on my website. So, because we're going to start running polls on the website as well. So I'll fill you in tomorrow on how we're going to do this. I'll have all the details worked out. But we'll do a poll and I'll put up like 3 documentaries or movies and you guys can vote. And then the one that you vote on is the one that we'll watch, and then we'll watch it together and it'll be fun on a Friday. So that's my idea. And I think it'll be really fun. And I appreciate all of you on the live chat. Can we suggest some? Love Angel C. That's an even better idea. Maybe we can start running polls on some of the best documentaries or on some of the best movies. And I love movies too. If they can really accurately explain how things go down, I think that would be really fun. So Love Angela C. Great idea. I'm going to build this and we're going to work it out. Yeah, great idea. Zayed, I love you. Thanks for being on the live chat. Clones, great to see you as well. Mr. Worthless Eater, I'm glad that you were with us as well. HBAR 36, really great, very, very raucous live chat today. And Rothan Walker, it is official. I am inviting, he gets mad at me if I'm not balancing on the Israel issue the way he wants me to balance on the Israel issue. So no, I was not talking about Rothan Walker when I was talking about we need another Holocaust. I was talking more about Nick Fuentes when he said that I think that he mocks the Holocaust, or he says it didn't happen, or something inflammatory. And Future as I don't want to watch. That's the one I'm not watching with Nick Fuentes. Not happening. I'm not putting that on my poll. See, I have all the power because it's my show. So I'm going to take your advice and some of your ideas. But at the end of the day, I'm going to pick. Anyway, you guys are great. Thank you so much for being with us today on the Shannon Joy Show. We have huge shows coming up, by the way. Keep it tuned. Tiffany Cianci. I featured her video yesterday. She's a rock star. Her story is unbelievable. When I talk about, I get the best guests on this show. We're going to welcome Tiffany Cianci next week on the Shannon Joy Show. Catherine Austin Fitz is booked for December, early December. Dr. Alex Zeck has agreed to come on in December. And David Icke, I'm going to be interviewing David Icke. I believe it's the first week in, he has some ideas about who the bad guys are, but a lot of other really good ideas about the false two-party political paradigm and the theatrical nature of what politics is today. Cannot wait to interview David Icke, among others. I'm working on some other great interviews as well. So this is all coming up tomorrow. It's going to be you and me, but we have a lot to digest. Of course, Dr. Mary Talley Bowden tomorrow for her live show On Call with Dr. Mary Talley Bowden right here on the SJ Network. Huge interview with the embattled Dr. Hatfield. He was fired from HHS. This has created a firestorm in the medical freedom community. He was held as one of the only guys within HHS that was trying to push for the cause of medical freedom, address the toxic mRNA shots, among other things. He got thrown out unceremoniously. There's a lot to say there. Dr. Mary Talley Bowden interviewing Dr. Hatfield live tomorrow on Call with Dr. Mary Talley Bowden. We're going to be talking about other things as well. And we also have a crossover with Dr. Bowden. She and I have some stuff to do there. I wanted to let you know, I said that I'd give you an update on the Judah Boyce case. He is the young boy receiving cancer treatment and family was threatened with CPS. He's doing well. And we have now received messages and input from so many resources. So we are going to circle the wagons around this beautiful young family and this beautiful boy. We're going to get him the resources that he needs, including a pediatric oncologist that can treat him and make sure they're in compliance with what family courts and CPS want them to do. But we're also going to do everything we can to help get him legal protection as well. We cannot allow these medical kidnappings to happen. And as you guys know, I've probably covered a half a dozen of them in just the past year or year and a half. So we're going to continue, and we're going to continue to rally around Judah. We might have a follow-up show because there's more to this story than you guys even realize. Some things that we have not disclosed yet because we need to save this kid. But we're talking about pediatric oncology and cancer treatments and what happens to families when they get a diagnosis of childhood cancer or leukemia. It is really bad. And we're going to seek to expose that in the coming months. So thank you to all of you who have donated and taken care of Judah and the family. We'll continue to do that. Have a wonderful day. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again right here on the Shannon Joy Show.